The notification came at 6:47 inches the morning. Not a text. Not a call. The front desk buzzed up to my apartment and told me there were 3 people in the lobby asking to be let up, and before the doorman even finished the sentence, I already knew who they were. I had not seen my family in 8 years. I walked to the window and looked down at the street below, not because I could see the lobby from there, but because I needed a moment to breathe. The city was just waking up. A delivery truck was double parked outside the bakery across the street. 2 joggers passed under the yellow light of the street lamp. Everything was ordinary. Everything was calm. And in the lobby of my building, my mother, my father, and my brother were waiting for me to let them in. I told the doorman to tell them I wasn't home. He called back 30 seconds later and said my mother was crying. I sat down on the couch and stared at the ceiling and thought about a Tuesday afternoon 8 years ago when I was 19 years old, sitting across from my father at the kitchen table of the house I grew up in, watching him slide a bank statement across the table toward me like it was a business transaction. The account was empty. The $41,000 my grandmother had spent her entire adult life saving for my education, the fund she had started when I was born, the one she talked about at every birthday dinner, the one she made me promise I would use to become something great, baby girl, something really great, was gone. Every single dollar of it. And my father looked at me with this expression I will never forget, somewhere between exhausted and annoyed, and said, "Your brother needed it more than you did right now. You can take out loans like everyone else." My brother was 24 at the time. He had already dropped out of 2 colleges. He had already borrowed money from my parents 3 times and paid back none of it. He had a gambling problem that the whole family referred to as his struggles in the same gentle tone they used to talk about the weather. And he had convinced my parents to drain my grandmother's college fund, the account that was legally in my name, that my grandmother had transferred to me on my 18th birthday by forging my signature on a transfer authorization form. I found out about the forgery 6 weeks later, after I hired a notary to review the paperwork. I brought the evidence to my parents. I showed them the signature comparison. I showed them the notary's written assessment. My mother looked at the documents for a long time and then looked up at me and said, "Why are you trying to destroy this family?" I left 2 weeks after that. I packed 2 bags, moved into a friend's couch in another city, enrolled in a community college with a small scholarship I had applied for on my own, and I did not look back. 8 years. I finished my degree. I got certified. I built a career in forensic accounting, which is a field that, in a way I never planned but probably should have seen coming, is entirely about finding the truth inside financial records that someone tried to hide. I was good at it. I had a small apartment I loved, a colleague named Maya who had become my closest friend, and a life that was entirely my own. And now my mother was crying in the lobby. I picked up my phone and called Maya. She answered on the second ring, which meant she was already awake, which meant she was already at her desk, which meant she was going to tell me something I didn't want to hear with the calm voice she used when she already knew the answer and was waiting for me to catch up. "They're here," I said. "Your family?" "In the lobby." She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "Do you know why?" "I have a guess." 3 weeks earlier, my brother's name had appeared in a financial fraud investigation involving the logistics company where he had worked as a regional finance manager for the past 4 years. I had seen the news article online by coincidence, a small business journal piece about the investigation, and I had recognized his name immediately. According to the article, the company was alleging that someone in their finance department had been systematically redirecting vendor payments into shell accounts over a period of roughly 30 months. The total amount being investigated was somewhere in the range of $200,000. I had not reached out to anyone in my family about it. I had read the article twice, closed the tab, and gone to make coffee. Whatever was happening to my brother was not my problem. I had decided that a long time ago. "They want something from you," Maya said. It wasn't a question. "Obviously. Are you going to go down?" I thought about it. I thought about my mother crying. I thought about the fact that they had found my address, which meant someone had looked for it, which meant this visit was planned. I thought about the $41,000 and the forged signature and the notary report my parents had looked at and chosen not to believe. "No," I said. "I'm not." But even as I said it, I knew I wasn't going to be able to just wait them out. My mother was not the type to leave. She would stand in that lobby for 6 hours if she had to. She had a specific kind of stubbornness that expressed itself as endless patience in the direction of whatever she had decided she wanted, and she had always wanted her children in the same room together, even when one of those children had stolen from the other one. I put on shoes and took the elevator down. My mother saw me before the elevator doors were fully open. She crossed the lobby in about 4 steps and hugged me before I could react, and the smell of her perfume, the same one, the exact same one, unchanged for 30 years, hit me somewhere behind my sternum where I kept things I didn't look at. I stood there with my arms at my sides for a moment before I stepped back. My father was standing near the front desk with his hands in the pockets of a jacket that looked newer than anything I remembered him owning. He had aged. His hair was fully gray now. He looked at me with an expression that I realized, after a moment, was supposed to look like warmth but was actually just relief, the specific relief of someone who had been worried they wouldn't be let in. My brother was standing near the door. He had not changed as much as my father. He was heavier, and there was something around his eyes that looked like he hadn't slept properly in several weeks, but he was still recognizably the person I had grown up with. The person who had taught me to ride a bike in the parking lot of our church. The person who had also, without any apparent hesitation, stolen $41,000 from a 19-year-old girl and forged her name on legal paperwork and then watched her get screamed at by their parents for trying to destroy the family. He didn't come toward me. He just looked at me with those tired eyes and said, "Hey." "Hey," I said. My mother was already talking. She was saying something about how long it had been and how much she had missed me and how she thought about me every single day. And I let her talk because stopping her would have taken more energy than I had at 6:52 inches the morning, and also because nothing she was saying was the reason they were here and we all knew it. My father put his hand on my mother's arm. "Let's not do this in the lobby," he said. "We can do it here," I said. "I'm not bringing you upstairs." Something moved across my father's face. Not anger, exactly. More like the recalibration of someone who had prepared for a different version of this conversation. "Your brother is in trouble," my mother said. She had stopped the flow of the other things and landed on the real thing, which was almost a relief. "Real trouble. And we need your help." "I saw the news," I said. "Then you know how serious it is." She was looking at me with the expression she had always used when she wanted me to understand that the situation was bigger than whatever feelings I might personally be having about it. The expression that said, "Set yourself aside." The expression I had driven 200 miles away from when I was 19 years old. My brother finally walked toward us. He stopped about 3 feet from me and put his hands in his pockets, mirroring our father in a way that might have been unconscious. "They think I set up the shell accounts," he said. "But I didn't. Someone used my credentials. I was set up." I looked at him. "The investigation is at a stage where they're looking at everyone who had system access," he continued. "They pulled 2 years of my login records. But there's a 3-week window March 2 years ago where I was supposedly accessing the system from the office, but I was actually at a cabin in Vermont. I have receipts, photos, everything. The problem is the company's IT logs show my credentials being used from an internal terminal during that exact window. If I can show I was out of state that whole time, the timeline falls apart." "Then show them Vermont," I said. I did. But the investigators are also pulling financial records going back further. And there are some transfers from around that time that look connected to accounts my name is attached to. Old accounts. Accounts I thought were closed." He paused. "Accounts where you're also listed as a co-holder. From when we were kids, when Mom set up a joint savings thing. You remember that?" I was very still. "We need you to talk to your company," my mother said. "You work with investigators. You know how this works. If you could just look at the records, maybe explain to the right people that the account was dormant, that—" "Stop," I said. She stopped. "You want me to use my professional position and my professional relationships to intervene in an active fraud investigation on behalf of the person who forged my signature when I was 19 years old." The lobby was quiet. The doorman was looking at the far wall with intense professional focus. "Your family," my father said. "You said that 8 years ago too," I said. "Right before you told me I could take out loans like everyone else." My father's jaw tightened. "We're not here to relitigate the past. I know exactly why you're here." I kept my voice level. I had spent a lot of years learning to keep my voice level. "You're here because my brother is under investigation and because there's a dormant joint account with my name on it and because someone told you that having a forensic accountant in the family might be useful right now. That's why you're here. Not because you missed me. Not because you thought about me every day." My mother made a sound like I had struck her. "That's not fair," my father said. "What would fair look like to you?" I asked. "Because I have a specific memory of what fair looked like to you 8 years ago, and I'd like to understand if the definition has changed." My brother was looking at the floor. This was new. The version of my brother I remembered had never looked at the floor. He had always looked straight ahead with the specific confidence of someone who had never fully experienced consequences. "I know what I did," he said quietly. Everyone in the lobby seemed to pause. "I know it was wrong." He looked up. "I've known it for a long time. I'm not asking you to pretend it didn't happen. I'm asking you to help me because I actually didn't do this. And I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know that." I looked at him for a long moment. "I need to think," I said. "Go find somewhere to have breakfast. I'll call you in an hour." I went back upstairs. I called Maya again. I told her everything, including the part about the joint account. She listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I trusted most about her. "Joint account from childhood," she said when I finished. "Do you have any documentation on it?" "I don't know. Maybe. There might be something in a box from when I moved. Because if your name is on that account and it shows activity during the period they're investigating, you have a personal interest in getting ahead of this regardless of your brother. That thought had already arrived in my mind, quietly, during the elevator ride up. I hadn't wanted to look at it directly yet. I know, I said. I'm going to say something and I need you to hear it as a friend and not as a colleague, Maya said. Okay. Don't touch anything without your own attorney. Not for your brother. Not for your parents. Not for the account. Get your own representation first. Today, before you call them back. I sat with that. If your brother is actually innocent, she continued, the evidence will show that without you getting involved. If he's not innocent, you do not want to be anywhere near it. Either way, the first call you make today should be to a lawyer who represents only you. I called a lawyer I had worked with on 2 previous cases. A woman named Patricia who specialized in financial litigation and who had a voice like a closing argument. I explained the situation. She told me to forward any documents I had related to the joint account before I made any other calls, and she said she would call me back within the hour. 40 minutes later she called back and told me 3 things. First, the joint account had been dormant since I was 22, and the last activity on it was a small automatic interest posting. Nothing that could reasonably be connected to the Shell account transfers. Second, she had done a preliminary check and the investigative timeline did not include any suspicious activity from my account. Third, and this was the part that made me put my coffee cup down slowly and carefully on the counter. The Shell accounts my brother's company was investigating had been set up using credentials that included an old employee ID number that predated the period when my brother had that level of system access. Which meant either someone had used very old credentials to frame my brother specifically, or the setup of this whole thing was more complicated than the news article had suggested. This isn't straightforward, Patricia said. Your brother may be telling the truth. He may be, I said. That doesn't change my advice. You stay separate. You don't intervene professionally. You don't touch those records. If he's innocent, the investigation will reach that conclusion. Your job right now is to protect yourself. I called my brother. He answered before the first ring finished, which told me they had not actually gone to breakfast and were probably still sitting in the car outside my building. I'm not going to use my professional position to intervene in the investigation, I said. I have my own attorney and she has confirmed that my name and my accounts are not in the window they're examining. So that piece of this is handled. He was quiet. But I have a question for you and I need you to answer it honestly. Okay, he said. The 3-week Vermont window. Do you have time-stamped documentation? Receipts that show purchases made physically in Vermont? Photos with location data? Yes. All of it. Have you given all of that to your attorney? Yes. Then here's what I'm going to tell you. And it's the only thing I'm going to tell you. And I want you to understand this is not me helping you the way mom and dad think I'm going to help you. This is me telling you something as someone who works in this field. I took a breath. The building your office is in it has security cameras that log every entry and exit with employee badge scans. Every single one. That log is separate from the IT system. It's maintained by the building management company, not by your employer. If your badge shows you exiting that building on a Friday afternoon in early March 2 years ago and doesn't show you entering again until 3.5 weeks later, that is independent of any company system and cannot have been manipulated by whoever set up the Shell accounts. Your attorney needs to subpoena that building log today. He didn't say anything for several seconds. The building log, he repeated. It's completely separate from company IT. It's managed by a third party. It will show exactly when your badge was physically used at that building entrance. If you were in Vermont, it will show that you weren't there. I didn't know about that. Now you do. I paused. Tell your attorney. That's all I have for you. Wait. That's all I have, I said again. Not unkindly. I hope it helps. I genuinely do. I hung up before he could say anything else. My mother called 4 minutes later. I did not answer. She called again. I did not answer. The third time I picked up and said, Mom, I told him what I know. That's the end of my involvement. I need you to hear me say that and respect it. Why are you doing this? Her voice was thin in a way that used to break me and now just made me very tired. I'm not doing anything to him. I gave him information that might actually help his case, but I'm not risking my career and my license and my name for someone who forged my signature, regardless of what he's currently accused of. He was young. He made a mistake. He was 24. He knew what a signature was. You've punished us long enough. Her voice had shifted. The thin quality was gone. Now it was the other voice, the one that came when she had decided that softness wasn't working and firmness was required. 8 years. Not a phone call. Not a holiday. Not even when your father had his surgery. I had known this was coming. I had known since the elevator. I didn't know about the surgery, I said. You didn't tell me. How would I tell you? You disappeared. I left you a forwarding address when I moved the first time. I left you an email address. I left both of those things. You chose not to use them until now, when you needed something from me. She made a sound that might have been crying and might have been something else. You're so cold. You were always so cold. I stood at my window again. The delivery truck was gone. The joggers were long gone. The city had woken up fully and was now simply itself, indifferent and busy and nothing like where I grew up. I love you, Mom, I said. It was true. Complicated and frustrating and true. But loving you doesn't mean I owe you silence about what happened. It doesn't mean I owe you anything I'm not willing to give. You can be angry about that. You can think I'm cold. But this is where I am, and it's where I've been for 8 years, and me not having a relationship with you doesn't mean I've been punishing you. It means I was surviving. She didn't respond. I hope the building log helps him, I said. I hope he gets through this. And I hope you find a way to be okay. Genuinely. But I'm going to hang up now. And I need you to stop calling. I hung up. I stood there for a while with my phone in my hand. Then I put it down on the kitchen counter and made a second cup of coffee and sat at my small table and looked out at the street below and let the morning finish arriving. 3 weeks later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. Something made me pick up. It was my brother. The building log worked, he said. My badge shows me leaving the building at 4:18 on a Friday afternoon and not returning for 22 days. The shell account activity all happened during that window, from an internal terminal. The IT security team is now looking at who was in the building with access to that terminal during those dates. He paused. The investigation has shifted. They don't think it was me. I waited. My attorney said it was the single most important piece of evidence we submitted. I'm glad, I said. And I was. Even with everything, I was glad. I've been thinking about what I did 8 years ago. I've been in therapy for 2 years and I think about it more than you would probably believe. His voice was careful in the way of someone who has practiced saying something and is now actually saying it and finding it harder than practice. I stole from you. I forged your name. I let Mom and Dad convince themselves, and me, that you were overreacting, and I let that be true because it was easier than facing what I actually did. And then you left and I still let it be true for a long time because facing it meant facing who I was at 24. And I wasn't ready to do that for a really long time. I was quiet. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I don't think I get to ask for that. I just wanted you to know that I know. That I've always known. Underneath everything. And I'm sorry. For real. For whatever that's worth. I thought about my grandmother. I thought about her at every birthday dinner, talking about the fund, calling it your future, baby girl. The way she had smiled when she told me she had started it the week I was born because she wanted me to know from the very beginning that someone believed in me. She had died while I was in community college, before I finished my degree, before I became something great. I had not been able to go to the funeral because I couldn't afford the flight and couldn't ask my parents for the money after everything, and I had sat in my friend's small apartment in a city I was still learning and cried alone, which was one of the worst nights of my adult life. My brother couldn't give any of that back. I hear you, I said finally. Okay, he said. I'm not ready to have a relationship right now. Maybe that changes someday. I don't know. But I heard you. That's enough, he said. That's more than enough. We said goodbye. I sat with the phone in my hand for a long moment and then I put it face down on the table, which was something I did when I needed to be in the room without the room having any exits. Maya came over that evening. She brought takeout from the Thai place we both pretended we didn't order from as often as we did, and we sat on my couch and ate, and I told her everything from the beginning, and when I finished, she was quiet for a moment. How do you feel? She asked. Tired, I said. But a different kind of tired than I've had in a while. Different how? I thought about it. Like after you finally put down something heavy. You're still tired, but it's not the same weight. She nodded. She understood this, I think, because Maya was someone who had also put down heavy things. You did the right thing, she said. With the building log. You didn't have to do that. I know. You could have said nothing and let it go wherever it was going to go. I know. But you told him anyway. He might have actually been innocent, I said. And he was. And the alternative was letting an innocent person get convicted of something they didn't do because I was angry at them. That's not justice. That's just revenge with extra steps. Maya pointed at me with a chopstick. That's very mature. I have been in therapy for 5 years. It should count for something. She laughed. I laughed. Outside my window, the city made its ordinary evening sounds. The sounds I had come to know the way you come to know a place that you chose, that you built yourself into, that belonged to you not because you were born into it but because you decided. I had decided. I thought about my grandmother. I thought about the promise I had made her at every birthday dinner, the one about becoming something great, and I thought about how I had done exactly that, not because anyone cleared the path for me but because when the path was blocked I found a different one and walked it alone until my legs knew the way. Blood, they say, is thicker than water. My grandmother used to say that too, when she was alive, but she also used to say something else, something she told me the last time I saw her, 3 weeks before I left home for good, as if some part of her already knew what was coming. She took my hand in both of hers, which were small and dry and warm, and she said, Baby girl, you are going to be okay. No matter what they do. No matter what they take. The thing they can't take is the part of you that keeps going. I kept going. I kept going for 8 years and I was still going. And the morning that my family stood in my lobby and I chose not to let them upstairs, and then I chose, on my own terms, to share one piece of information that might help an innocent person that morning was not the end of anything. It was just a Tuesday. Just a city waking up outside a window. Just me, standing in the life I had built, deciding again, the way I decided every day, what I was willing to carry and what I was finally allowed to put down. The delivery truck came back the next morning. The same spot, the same double park, the same driver lifting boxes with the efficient rhythm of someone who has done the same thing so many times that the body just knows. I watched him from the window while my coffee brewed and I thought, that's all it is, really. You do the thing. You do it again. You learn the weight of what you're carrying and you figure out what's worth the effort and what you can set down on the curb. I drank my coffee. I went to work.